And in the best timeline, Bengal is no more. Cue up the crowd brave. I removed as many modifiers as I could that raise the cost of development for provinces in EU4. This means that mountain provinces in the Arctic will develop for a similar cost as a grasslands province in Europe, and scaling costs have been removed so a 100 dev province costs the same to dev as a 3 dev province. This should lead to some wacky numbers in terms of province dev across the world, and I am excited to see how it turns out, and I'm also curious, what province are you rooting for the highest dev in the world by 1821? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're down there, I'm shooting for 20,000 subs by the new year, so don't forget to subscribe for more Chubert content to come. As I said in the intro, 1444 map, aside from the natives, looks exactly the same as you would expect in vanilla. Even the development map mode is going to look like what you would expect from vanilla. It's when you get into the province view, that's when things look a little more interesting. As you can see here, local development cost for farmlands is still here, but if we take a look over at this Hills province, there is no longer a negative. And likewise, current development will not affect the cost of development in the future. So theoretically, the AI will be able to develop this province forever for 40 development. The price can go down depending on technology or ideas and stuff like that, but it will never go up, except for maybe like modifiers or whatever that they may get from events or something like that, because I couldn't be asked to go through all of it. But yeah, so essentially my rule of thumb was remove anything that added dev cost and keep anything that lowered it. So we're probably going to see some provinces developed up. A lot of these 3 dev provinces are still going to stay 50 cost, so if the AI has extra mana, they will use it for development. But you know how we make that development map mode go burr? We speed 5 and we unpause. And I should say before we get too far in, some of the highest developed provinces in the world are in the 28, 25, 20, Paris is 23, 20, 19. So yeah, most of these higher dev provinces are in that 20 to 25 range, though there's a few in the high 20s, but I think that's about it. So we'll see how the development map mode changes here before too long, I'm sure. And in 30 years, as you can see here, yeah, Constantinople, pretty high dev, and that is because the Ottomans are ahead of time in all of their techs except for admin. They're actually going Inno as well, so they're going to have tons of excess mana to be spending on development. 73 development in 30 years is, yeah, it's nuts. Taking a look at the ledger here, you can see Constantinople has the highest base tax, production, and manpower by a long shot. Number 2 base tax in the world is just 4 behind that, but look at this production deficit. My goodness. A couple of other provinces, we have Napoli with 40 development, Vienna with 31, Prague still at 25, but it looks like Austria made their way into there. Nanjing is at 33 with this Hangzhou at 27, Beijing of course 36, and this Hansong here at 30. So definitely some development going on. Obviously, as the game continues, you're going to see a lot of things change, but one thing that won't change, hopefully, is a development cost. So that being said, who do you guys think is going to have the highest development at the end? And what province do you think will be the highest dev province in the world? Let us know in the comments below, I'm curious. Portugal, Castile, and England all went exploration expansion, but France decided to go with economic. Looks like we're gonna see some development coming out of them. Also, somebody who went economic is the Teutonic Order, who's doing quite well. Just take a look at those borders. They have beaten up on Poland, and it looks like the Holy Horde is probably gonna happen. Well, if we're lucky. Austria has the personal union over here on Hungary, and Hungary is large. Looks like Aragon has not been personal unioned yet, and there is no females on the throne yet, so we'll see if that happens. And I was wrong. They went religious, not eco. They went religious. Hungary here went eco, so once they get that 10% dev cost, it's basically going to apply for every province for the rest of the game. Ooh, very scarily eco for the Ming as well. Okay. And in 100 years, a lot of things have changed on multiple different map modes. Over here in Iberia, you can see an independent Valencia. And then just across from them, you see that there's some issues going on in Sardinia. But over here in Italy, we have a 2 Sicilies that has formed. Also, it appears that Rome has been conquered by the Tunisians. Is this one of those Roma delanda est alt history situations right now? Because that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting. Franconia has formed in the HRE, and to be fair, there's actually quite a bit of blobbing going on within the HRE. Liège has become Burgundy. Strasbourg has just become everything from Zweibrücken over to Ulm. The Teutonic Order is doing quite well. You saw that right, friends. The capital of Poland is actually Kiev. And as far as the development map mode goes, there has been quite a few changes. We have multiple 100 development provinces, with Constantinople at 122 with 59 base manpower development. Take a look at Tuscany, 108 and 89, 55, their lowest dev province at 46, the least tall Italian playthrough. Paris with 107, and take a look at Copenhagen up here with 59 base tax, leaning very heavily into that tax meta. Denmark going to be collecting that buckets of ducats. Across the land over here in China, Beijing at 52 development, looking pretty good. It's definitely the highest one in the area, with not a whole lot of changes going on in a few of the other ones. But I think the thing that I'm noticing the most is just how even the map mode has become. There's a lot more yellow and a lot less red and orange. So I think it means that they are basically spreading out their development. So we're learning a bit about how the development map mode works as far as like AI logic, which I think is pretty interesting. I did miss Venice here with 91 development, 42 production on a glass province. That's going to be pretty lucrative for them. And Constantinople actually got the Diamond District as well. So safe to say there's going to be some money in a few of these nodes. Constantinople is actually the third richest node in Europe after Genoa and Venice. So that's pretty crazy. And since we're here, we should definitely take a look at the Reformation, which is quite Protestant. That is, of course, except for across the channel where the British have decided to do their own thing. Centers of Reformation for the Protestant Church are Hamburg, Berlin, and Wittenberg, with Reformed over here by Geneva and in Chur. But with a big Protestant Teutonic Order, I was really hoping to see a Prussia, but I don't actually know exactly how it works anymore. So it looks like they're actually going to stay the Teutonic Order, which is, moderately hilarious. The colonial game is well underway, with Portugal in the south and Brazil is Castilian. France, late to the party, but better late than never over here in Colombia. A very green Caribbean, as Portugal takes over the entirety of this area. And we've got Spanish in the south of Mexico, as well as the north of Mexico. And of course, Florida man be speaking of Spanish in this timeline. And of course, the capital of Florida, Chesapeake. Up in the north, we've got some Danes and we've got some English. So a little bit of both. Too much red though. Somebody's gonna have to go. And since we're here, we might as well take a look at the eastern side of the map, with Korea dominating, Oirat in the north, but Ming not feeling too good. Shun, a bunch of other little breakaway states have popped out, and are you really surprised? One thing that I love to see is Oda taking over the majority of the development in Japan. Oda, for those of you who do not know, is like the Prussia of Japan kind of deal. They are incredibly powerful, like without a doubt the best military ideas of the Japanese islands. Bit of action over here in Southeast Asia with Majapahit doing some colonization, but taking a look into India, you're going to see the usual suspects with Bengal, Bahmanis, but in the north we've got Delhi and Malwa fighting it out for supremacy. And Vijayanagar getting pushed out, but they do still exist in some way, shape, or form. Timmy is doing okay. They've expanded quite a bit, but it looks like they haven't integrated Fars or Transoxiana yet. Ah, yes. We all know of Kiev, right? The border state next to Kiev. And of course, we all know about the Prussians that settled here in Jutland, right? Or the Korean settlement of Manchuria. Definitely some strange stuff going on. We're going to take a look at it. Aragon has pushed a bit into Castile, and Castile has pushed a bit into Aragon. I have no idea. France has pushed a bit into everybody. Absolutely massive France. And speaking of massive, Teutons and Austria are kind of rivaling each other with a very strong border. Being rivaled by nobody is the Ottomans, currently beating the tar out of Timmy, and has repeatedly beaten the tar out of their friends to the north. Russia has formed, but they're not thriving. They're not doing very well. You can see they have an enclave over there in the Teutonic Order, and Teutonic Russia over there by St. Petersburg. Yeah, they're hurting. They've also lost multiple wars to Timmy as well as the Ottomans, and lost a ton of land in the meantime. But don't worry, they do have ports over here on the Pacific. Somalia has formed right next to the French Congo, and colonial Castile pushing the Africans out of the Sahel. South America is green in the south, with Portugal, Castilian over in Brazil, and then French Colombia going strong in the north. The Spanish have filled out the east coast, Louisiana, as well as basically all of Mexico, and they've made their way over to the left coast, settling Pacifico Norte and California. It also appears that the British have taken over Newfoundland from the Danes, and the 13 colonies has formed is competing with Florida in the north. Taking a look over in Japan, you're going to see Japan getting cut in half. Japan with a little bit of an ouchie, wouldn't you say? China still very disunited, with mandate growth in the negatives. No surprise there. Shun is the emperor, but we'll see what they can do with that. HRE certainly not thriving, with Austria still the emperor, 0 reforms passed, and only 16 princes left, though it does seem like the Catholics decided that they were going to maintain dominance in the HRE, because it appears that it's basically just the Teutons and then a couple of random tags here and there, but for the most part, it is Catholic. The development map mode is looking quite yellow with some spots of green so bright that we can see them from space. Just look at Italy. My goodness, from all the way from Napoli to Milano, Treviso, and Venice, beautiful stuff. And then over here, you've got Paris. Just guess what Paris's development is at and leave it in a comment below. We're going to come back to here in a minute, and I want you to go back and edit your comment and let us know if you were right or wrong. It's just so yellow. It's actually crazy to me. Obviously, there's a couple of random little 3 or 4 dev provinces, but for the most part, it's like 11, 12, 13 in every single province. It's kind of crazy. We've got Constantinople, Cairo, both looking very strong. Wu has united most of China, and you've got a couple of provinces over here. We've even got some green provinces down here in Malaysia. Northern India has quite a bit of development. And even over in the New World, there's quite a bit of red that has disappeared since the last time I looked. Constantinople with 182 development. Napoli with 130. Rome with 152. 173 in Florence, with 152 in Genoa, which, might I add, is owned by France. Venice is 169. Nice. Milan, 140. Even the Wieners with a respectable 74, despite the fact that Austria has seen better days. Nuremberg with a whopping 143. 131 in Copenhagen. Wiscona over here with 87. London with 119. And Big Daddy Paris with 237 development. Actually insane. And I'll be honest, I think a lot of it has been because they are winning so many wars that they are taking the development from other people's capitals. At least I think so. I mean, shoot, with all these modifiers they have stacked up, it's only costing them 17 mana per, which is insane. And then, of course, there's this Auvergne, which is going to be a coal province later on, so they're going to dev that to the moon as well. But as far as political, it's mostly just France and the Ottomans. That tends to be who we're looking at here. Sicily has made their way down into northern Africa and a few islands, as well as Western Europe, apparently. But Austria has absolutely just been dominated, and Nitra has popped out, though looks like they're getting occupied by the French. Now you can see here that we do have a de Valois or whatever for the Teutons, which is the same dynasty as France as well as Castile. And I think that at one point they may have been personal union, because France has a bunch of land over here that I assume they took because they bordered a vassal, if that makes sense. I can't see how they would have taken those provinces otherwise. We have the Teutons making their way up into Scandinavia, and the Scandinavians making their way over into Russia, and then the Ottomans just making their way everywhere. And speaking of making their way everywhere, look at the Timurids absolutely dominating over here in Siberia. And apparently we have Swedish West Siberia, which is also a very good one. As I showed, Wu has absolutely just dominated in China, had comeback of the century right next to Korea, who's well into Japan as well as Manchuria, but they're actually losing parts of Korea. Jaunpur has migrated out of Jaunpur and up into Tibet and Nepal. And in the best timeline, Bengal is no more. Cue up the crowd brave. I meant to show this because the development over here in Malacca is 68, which is crazy. Portugal is in control of southern Africa, apparently, over here. And Somalia is not doing well anymore. It looks like the Ottomans and the Portuguese are splitting them up, so to speak. Castile and Britain continue to dominate the Sahel. But how about Flanders over here with their capital in the Grain Coast? Good old 3 development Grain Coast. Colonial game has just filled out for the most part. North America is very yellow with some red up here. South America is green with some yellow and some blue. And with 120 years left, we have the Ottomans in first place, no surprise, with France in second place, also no surprise. Castile in third, mostly because they control the entirety of the New World, as well as Portugal in fourth, again, controlling a large portion of the New World. Great Britain is a little bit surprising because they only have parts of Canada and northern eastern US, but good on them. Palmanes is in 6th place, and it would be pretty sweet if they formed Hindustan. Wu in 7th, very interesting. And the Teutons in 8th place, despite the fact that they keep getting destroyed by the Ottomans, so good on them. Also, they do not have 1 million units, so they're not getting any points, but the Ottomans have proclaimed military hegemony, which is terrifying to say the least. Also, I should point out probably the reason why Wu is so strong, there is no mandate. The mandate is gone. Lads, I don't think that's how you spell Wu. And we return to our good old friend 1821 to take a look at the damage and what has been done. Now, the British Moluccas is cool and all that, but how about another video where we see a new Centaura form? That's pretty cool. I like formables. Also, it's a very beautiful purple, you got to admit. Of course, I called it. Von Manus always forms Deccan, so, you know, no exception this time, though I'm disappointed they didn't form Hindustan. Timurids collapsed with Delhi and Mongolia filling the void, but Timmy does still exist. You guys know about the Timurid capital of Sigunka here in central Siberia, right? And jokes aside about Wu's name placement, they did okay. They ended up gobbling up most of Korea, which is crazy, all the way into Japan. They even took this island off the coast of Japan. Sweden maintained their random provinces throughout Russia. Doesn't look like they really did much after that, though. It looks like they even may have lost a province or two to the Teutonic Order, but the Teutonic Order has some weird borders of their own. We have Revolutionary Smolensk and Revolutionary Polotsk inside of the Teutonic Order, who also has Revolutionary Poland inside of it. Pope Man is a one-province minor up here in Lauenburg, and Austria is 3 provinces left, and none of them are in Austria. Two Sicilies finished strong, taking over most of Italy, a good chunk of the Balkans, and also a large chunk of Greece with the side of Anatolia over here. We have a revolutionary Wallachia with exact 1444 borders, and an ailing Ottomans, the sick man of Europe. I don't even know where their name is, actually. I'm looking around and I don't see it. But yeah, they are gone. They're dead, and they will not be around for much longer if I let this game run anymore. We do have a nice Sienese Maghreb across the sea from Siena. But don't forget about the Cagliari fort of Siena as well. And it appears that the French actually pushed Portugal out of Africa, well, at least out of Western Africa. Or I guess I should probably say that they pushed them into the Horn of Africa and into South Africa. Saklava even taking a couple of provinces across from the island. Flanders still exists in the Grain Coast. Very funny. We have this revolutionary native nation over here, which is kinda funny. We also have one British province here, randomly in Portuguese Peru. But aside from that, everything is basically the same as it was last time we looked. And I'm going to be honest, I think this looks exactly the same as it did 100 years ago, except maybe Florida took a couple of provinces from Newfoundland and the 13 colonies up here. Aside from that, I think it's exactly the same. And I don't think I mentioned this at all throughout the video, but Portugal took the lion's share of Australia, and Spain took the lion's share of New Zealand. But it looks like everybody's got a little bit of a hand in here except for the French. The Protestants were, for the most part, eradicated from the Catholic-dominated Europe, but the Anglicans still held out over here in the British Isles. Funnily enough, Siena is Protestant, but nobody else around them is, so I don't know how they managed to survive. We have a couple of Orthodox nations over here, but for the most part, it is essentially a dead religion. New World is about what you would expect, except Newfoundland being Protestant is a little bit of a plot twist. South America is entirely Catholic, as is the majority of occupied Africa, with some feet lovers sprinkled throughout, as well as some Coptics up there in the eastern parts. Talk about some border gore over here in Scandinavia, as well as northern China, some Buddhists, some Tengri, some Orthodox, lots of Confucians, a couple of Sunni Catholic provinces, just for good measure. Heck, we've even got an animist province over here in Manchuria, across from Shinto Japan. We have some Shias over here in Tibet, as well as some Shias over here, splitting the land with Buddhism. And again, a couple of Catholic provinces because reasons. But the Hindu lands in India that were converted were more than made up for with the conversion of the steppes, as well as Iran, to Hinduism, apparently. We also have a couple of Sikh provinces over here and there, so that's pretty cool. Now, it turns out that the lowlands, it's all Dutch, and apparently former Dutch land over here in Brugge is actually Walloon. Flemish still exists, but was pushed out of Flanders, which is mildly hilarious. And Lower Saxon cut right through Westphalian and made a bit of border gore over here with Rhenish as well. It also looks like Swabian did a bit of conversion pushing over into Bavaria. And it seems that the Austrians pushed down into Carniola. Hungarian definitely pushed some of the Croatians out of this area. Occitan, like in many other videos, has spread into northern Italy, as well as a couple of provinces over here in the Iberian area. And how about that Burgundian border gore? A little bit of tendrils touching into the HRE. The New World, as expected, very Mexican and Castilian. But we also have English up here in the north and American also up here, but mostly in Canada, funnily enough. And of course, we can't forget about the old Vinlanders up here, as well as the notable population of Norwegians here in northern Florida and Louisiana, Portuguese and Brazilian down here in South America, though funnily enough, most of Brazil is actually Platinian culture with some Castilian. Down under is almost exclusively Portuguese and Castilian, and then there's a couple of native cultures, but that is about it. But of course, we have to take a look at the development map mode. Why would we do the whole video if we weren't going to take a look at the development map mode? That would be unlike me to forget to look at a map mode that is very important to the entire video, right, boys? Constantinople with a cool 219 development, and Paris with a whopping 320, which is insane. 109 base tax, 98 production, and 113 base manpower. Much of the lands up here also has very high development, like 90 development, 74 development, 104 over here in Namur. Even Brugge has over 100. Napoli with 145 and Rome with 153. The entirety of the Tuscany state has high development with at least 90, well, 88 over here. 153 in Genoa, Nuremberg with a whopping 168, and Krakow over here with 124. Stockholm finished with a respectable 105. And over here in this Hancheng, we have 137, but over here in Hangzhou, we have 176. Nutty. 132 over here in Nanjing. So safe to say that the did okay. One province minor, Malwa, with 147 development in their capital here, rocking a 22 stack of an army, which is respectable to say the least. Take a look at Madagascar. Every single province is like 20 or more development. Now that is good. I like that. That splendid isolationism. And take a look at the development map mode of South America and North America. Of course, there's plenty that still is underdeveloped, but again, a lot of areas with like 20, 30, 40 development in the various provinces, which is pretty solid. I'm sure there's quite a bit of development just in the New World in general. Of course, Iceland's got a little bit of development, 19 between the two provinces. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you let me know by leaving a like on the video, and I am pushing for 20,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I would appreciate it a lot if you would subscribe. If you haven't already, I have a Discord, a subreddit, a Twitter, and they're all linked in the description below. I recommend you join them if you're looking for some cool community or ways to communicate with me. If you have a suggestion for a video that you think would be a good one, go ahead and leave it in the comments below the video. And if you want to be part of the Cool Kids Club and get early access to these videos, you can check out my Patreon for as little as $5 a month. All of those things are linked in the description below the video. And that is all I've got for you for today. So until next time, I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day and stay chill.